7:51 is the time. My name is Bob. It's BS with Bob Schmidt. Emily Taylor joining me now. Talking gun control, I talked about it earlier this morning. I don't think that gun control is something that that would work in the United States. I really don't. 7:52 is the time. Emily, thanks a lot for being on with me this morning. An independent program attorney with U.S. Law Shield, one of the leading voices in the Second Amendment, a former prosecutor. I appreciate you being on with me this morning, talking about gun law. So, first of all, I guess, what is a bump stock? I never really heard about that until just this week.
Sure. Even people who own a lot of guns and are really involved in the firearms community aren't really familiar with this item. It's pretty rare. It's just a piece of plastic. It's a firearms accessory. And what it does is it fits onto your semi-automatic rifle, and it uses the recoil of the rifle itself in order to move the gun back and forth. Basically, what it's doing is bouncing the trigger onto your finger at a rapid pace. So it's not converting a semi-automatic rifle to a fully automatic rifle. In fact, the ATF looked at that issue specifically, says that it does not do that, and it issues an opinion letter to that effect during any purchase of one of these items. But what it's doing is it is allowing you to pull the trigger, one trigger pull to one round discharge from the firearm more rapidly than you would generally otherwise be able to.
So I did hear on the news this morning that Walmart was selling them on Walmart.com, but it was through a third-party vendor that they took that off. I also heard that we'll probably finally get some approval across both aisles, Republican and Democrat, and the NRA kind of working together to kind of get rid of these. Is that true?
I think so. This is an issue you're not going to see Second Amendment advocates rallying around. They are so rare, and they're really quite useless at the end of the day. They make your fire very inaccurate. It's not something that gun people are really going to be up in arms about. Now, that being said, the bill as proposed by Senator Feinstein is actually, I think, a little bit problematic in several ways, and I do hope that our lawmakers will take a look at that.
Emily Taylor joining us this morning, a gun law expert, talking this morning about the unfortunate shooting that happened in Las Vegas this last week. I was talking about this earlier this morning as part of my my daily dose of BS, and the headlines all scream, if you do a Google search for gun control, that Americans want strict gun control laws after this type of shooting. I personally don't think that that adding more laws will take away this type of an opportunity for somebody that wants to do something like this. Do you? I mean, is that something that you see actually, making a difference in these?
I agree with you completely, and I think that it's the fundamental internal inconsistency and hypocrisy in the gun control argument is that the people who are advocates for gun control say, surely these people, these criminals who are willing to commit the highest offense in the land, they're willing to commit murder, but we're going to impose these gun control regulations, and surely they're going to obey these regulatory issues with regard to purchasing and possessing firearms. It's a crazy line of thinking to say that a murderer will be so concerned about the law as to not violate a purchase or possession law.
Emily, I don't know what state you live in. I live in Wisconsin here, that texting and driving is against the law, and I think that a lot of states have that. Maybe all of them do now. But every day that I drive my car, every day that I go from Onalaska, Wisconsin, where the radio station is, to La Crosse, Wisconsin, where I live, I see people texting and driving, and occasionally I'll grab my phone and look at it too at a stoplight. And so, I'm breaking that law, and I'm generally a law-abiding citizen. Or every time I hop on the highway, when it says 65 miles an hour, I'm going 67 miles an hour. Or I've sang happy birthday in the public before, or I peed outside. I'm a person that follows the laws, but apparently I'm breaking laws every day as well. And I'm a good guy.
Right. It's easy to do. Certainly, the wealth of laws we have just are such that good people are going to be violating ordinances on a daily basis, and that's unwittingly. and it's people who care about the law. And you can only imagine, I saw it as a prosecutor over and over and over again, when someone who has a criminal mentality wants to break the law, they figure out how to do it most efficiently, and they do it. The only thought they put into this, it isn't, oh, should I be a law-abiding citizen in this regard? They say, no, what's the easiest way for me not to get caught? And unfortunately, criminals are pretty industrious, and they will figure out a way.
You know, too bad they didn't use that mind for good rather than evil. Is there something that can be done to change the culture of gun owning and gun laws and stuff?
I wish I had a good answer to that. I honestly don't know what the answer is. I know for certain it's not tighter gun control and more regulation. The regulations we have in effect right now, they generally do their jobs. We have, good control on who can buy, who can own and possess. Most states have a litany of carry laws that are, I think sometimes far too aggressive, but that are already in place and generally work well. And I wish I had a good answer to say, how do we keep the criminal element from using their firearms for evil? But I wish that I knew. I like to actually analogize this to the issue of cars and DWI. I'm an attorney in Texas. I actually practice out of Harris County, which is Houston. And Houston has one of the highest incidences of drunk driving deaths in the entire country. We would love to fix that. We'd love to prevent it. But you would never hear a lawmaker say, well, we've got to stop this killing, and so we're going to take everyone's cars away. Or we're going to suspend anyone's driver's license who has more than 7 drinks a week. Or we're going to impose a curfew between the hours of 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. to stop this death. It sounds crazy to propose laws like that. And imagine, the right to drive is not a constitutionally enshrined right. So I honestly don't know lawfully and constitutionally where we go from here when it comes to trying to prevent gun deaths. I'm not sure that that there is a legal answer in terms of imposing more laws.
So you don't know if there's going to be more legislation following this shooting?
I don't know, and the legislation that's proposed is problematic. The senator has included, essentially, it would criminalize anything that could modify your rifle to fire more quickly, which could include, I think, simple trigger modifications, which many, many shooters put on their guns. People who shoot competitively or frequently, the elderly who are arthritic, will put a lighter trigger pull on their firearm. Mm-hmm. That could allow you to shoot more rapidly. So if we now made criminals out of, really tens of thousands of otherwise law-abiding gun owners, the legislation has to be taken very, very seriously. Even this very small bit we've seen proposed that on its face seeks only to criminalize bump stocks.
Absolutely. Emily, appreciate your time this morning. Emily Taylor, a gun law expert, uslawshield.com if you want more information. Emily, again, thanks for your time.
Since the Las Vegas shootings, you have been hearing, of course, the left, once again, their big clamor for more gun control. And KTRH's Cliff Saunders live with that.
Yeah, but let's separate fact and fiction, shall we? Emily Taylor with the U.S. Law Shield says there's one big thing that gun control supporters miss.
The idea that criminals will comply with strict gun laws is the fundamental difference between the way the left and the way that the pro-Second Amendment people look at this issue.
That said, the NRA is now calling for a review on bump stocks and whether they should be regulated further.